At my childhood home sale, my children said, "Take what you can carry." They forgot that I got a trump card. I was 76 years old the morning my children turned my entire life into an estate sale. I did not recognize my own house at first. Strangers walked through the hallways as if they were browsing a flea market, opening drawers I had closed only last night, touching picture frames that had held my memories for decades, whispering about what they could flip online for profit. I stood just inside the living room doorway, my hands clasped together, trying not to look like someone who no longer belonged. The house smelled of lemon polish and dust, Albert's favorite combination, and seeing it all laid out like merchandise made something inside my chest crumble. Austin and Amelia were dressed as though they were hosting a charity gala instead of selling off their childhood. Austin wore a fitted blazer and crisp jeans, holding a clipboard as if he had been managing estates his whole life. "Everything must go," he announced to a group of eager buyers. "Furniture, antiques, even the old piano." He tapped his pen on the list as though he had paid for any of it. Amelia stood near the front door, hanging a large white sign she had designed herself. "Everything must go, including the past." She smiled with a confidence that felt cruel. I had seen that smile before when she wanted something expensive, when she was hiding a lie, when she knew she was hurting someone and didn't care. A young couple walked in, and Amelia waved them toward the dining room. "Feel free to look around," she said. "Ignore her." She pointed at me without looking. "She just stays here for now. Not the owner, just the previous occupant." Her words landed like a slap. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. I took a slow step back, trying to stay upright. A man near the bookshelf frowned. "Is she the owner?" Austin didn't even glance my way. "No," he said, laughing lightly. "Just leftover from a sad marriage." The words echoed in my ears, leftover, sad marriage. As if Albert and I had been a mistake. As if the decades we built together were nothing but clutter to be cleared out. Then Amelia, with her voice sugar-sweet and venom-filled, added, "Honestly, if Mom had died when Dad did, things would have been a lot easier on everyone." The air left my lungs. I wondered if anyone else felt it hit them the way it hit me. I turned away, pretending to study a table of trinkets, but my legs shook. I had survived poverty, humiliation, back-breaking work, and the loss of my husband. But nothing had prepared me for the cruelty of my own children, spoken so boldly in front of strangers. A middle-aged woman approached me gently, perhaps sensing the pain etched across my face. Before she could speak, Austin appeared and nudged me aside. "Mom, stop lurking around people," he hissed. "Take whatever you can carry. After today, you're out for good." Around that moment, while trying to steady myself, I remembered something. I needed to say something for those who were listening, those who still had hearts open enough to understand what was unfolding. If you feel justice deserves celebration, smash that hype button. Let us keep stories like this alive, echoing far, far away. Your support helps us bring understanding and love to those who deserve it. Thank you so much. Keep listening. I reached for a porcelain wedding vase sitting at the edge of the dining table, the one Albert bought for me on our 10th anniversary. My fingers curled around it just as Austin swooped in and yanked it away. "No," he barked. "Even this isn't yours. Dad bought it, so it goes in the sale. You never had anything of your own." I felt a sting behind my eyes. "Austin, please," I whispered. He rolled his eyes and turned away, handing the vase to a buyer who asked about the price. A photographer stepped inside then, hired by Amelia to update the online listing. Amelia shoved me aside as she adjusted the lighting. "Move, Mom. Rich buyers don't want to see poverty in the frame." My foot slipped on the wooden floor, and for a brief moment I thought I might fall. But I steadied myself, pressing my hand to the wall, breathing in the memories buried in the paint. Room after room, the voices of strangers replaced the echoes of my children's laughter from years ago. They picked up Albert's chessboard, the rocking chair he built, the quilt I sewed for Austin when he was little and afraid of the dark. I watched a man hold up Amelia's baby blanket, the one I spent 3 nights stitching by hand because her fever wouldn't break. He examined it like a rag. Every part of my body ached, not from age, but from betrayal deeper than bone. I had loved these children more fiercely than I loved myself. I had worked double shifts, gone hungry, endured insults from the wealthy parents at their schools, and stayed silent through countless heartbreaks, all so they could have better than I ever did. Now they stood in my home, treating me like some stubborn stain they could not scrub out fast enough. But I stayed quiet. I watched. I breathed. I waited. And when Austin shouted across the room, "Take what you can carry, Mom," and then disappear, something inside me finally stopped trembling. I straightened my shoulders. I lifted my chin. They thought they had taken everything from me. They didn't know what I still carried. They didn't know what Albert had left behind. They didn't know the storm that was coming. And as I turned toward the hallway where Albert once told me to keep something safe for when I needed it most, I whispered to myself, "Take what you can carry," they say. They have no idea what I'm about to bring. I was not born into comfort or softness. I grew up in a corner of Tennessee where the soil was red and hard, and so was life. I lost both my parents before I finished middle school, and from then on I learned the kind of lessons children should never have to learn. I swept classrooms in the early mornings, wiping gum off desks before students arrived. After school, I worked at a diner that smelled of burnt grease, scrubbing plates until my fingertips cracked. At night, I washed laundry for families wealthier than mine, folding dresses I could never afford and shirts ironed crisp enough to make me feel ashamed of my own wrinkled clothes. Poverty clung to me like a second skin, and no matter how hard I scrubbed, the world reminded me I did not belong anywhere that sparkled. Then came Albert. He was a history teacher with warm eyes and a calm voice, and he treated me like someone worth noticing at a time when no one else did. He grew up in a respectable middle-class family, the kind people nodded to at church and invited to Sunday dinners. When he first asked if he could walk me home, I thought he was joking. When he kept asking, kept showing up, kept choosing me, the whole town seemed to tilt sideways. People whispered as we passed. "Albert could have chosen someone better," they said. "She's going to drag him down." He always smiled softly when he heard the comments, squeezing my hand a little tighter. "Let them talk," he told me. "I know what I'm choosing." But the whispers did not stop when we married. They just changed targets. By the time Austin and Amelia were old enough to understand words, those words were already hanging in the air around them. Other parents said things they thought children would forget. "Your daddy could have been principal if he'd married someone with more class," they'd whisper. Or, "He'd go farther if your mother didn't hold him back." Kids carry seeds like that without realizing it. They tuck them into their pockets, and eventually the seeds grow. At first, my children only looked confused when they heard those things. Confused, hurt, unsure. But over time, confusion hardened into belief. Belief hardened into resentment. And eventually, resentment hardened into something sharper and crueler. They began to look at their father like he was a victim, and at me like I was the anchor tied around his ankle. The irony was that all those years, Albert turned down promotions not because of me, but because he wanted to be home for the kids, wanted to coach their little league teams, wanted to be present. But he never corrected the rumors because he did not want to drag his family into petty gossip. Silence was his way of keeping peace, even when that silence cost me the respect of my own children. When Austin was 7, he broke his leg falling off his bike. The surgery cost more than we had in savings. Without hesitation, I sold my wedding ring, thin gold, nothing extravagant, but the only jewelry Albert ever bought me. I still remember the way the pawn shop owner looked at me when I placed it on the counter, as if I were handing over a part of my life. When Austin recovered, he never asked about the ring. When he got older, and he discovered I had once pawned it, he looked at me like I had committed a betrayal. "You ruin everything," he snapped. "If you weren't so poor, Dad wouldn't have had to marry down. We could have had a better life." I did not argue. I let him believe the worst. Maybe that was my mistake. Then came the offer that broke something sacred inside me. A wealthy businessman in town approached us when Austin was 10. He wanted to sponsor Austin, pay for private school, sports, even college someday. His only request was that I stay away from all ceremonies, events, or photos. "For the image," he told Albert privately. "People like her send the wrong message." I told Albert to decline. I could not let my son grow up with a benefactor who found my existence embarrassing. Austin did not know the full story then, but he found out later, and he never forgave me. "You ruined my future," he said. "You always think about your feelings first." Meanwhile, Amelia grew into a girl who loved appearances more than truth. She called me out of style, old-fashioned, and embarrassing. When she married her well-off husband, she told me not to wear the dress I had sewn myself. "It looks cheap," she said. "Don't make me look bad." Both my children hated the poverty I had climbed out of, yet neither had the discipline to stand on their own feet. Austin borrowed money repeatedly, trying business after business, always failing, always blaming the world. Amelia lived off her husband's income and spent her days pretending she belonged among polished women with perfect nails and empty hearts. Albert saw everything. He heard the disrespect, the ungratefulness, the twisted stories they believed. He tried to talk to them, but they brushed him off. "Dad, she kept you small," they said. "You could have been so much more." He shook his head each time, but they refused to listen. Toward the end, when Albert's health began to weaken, he grew quiet in a way that frightened me. One evening he kissed my forehead and said, "I need to protect you, Chris. I need to leave something behind that tells the truth." I did not understand until much later what he meant, but he started installing small cameras around the house, nothing fancy, devices he once used at the school where he oversaw security. He said it was for safety, in case he collapsed while I was out, but sometimes I caught a certain sadness in his eyes, as if he was recording more than just the rooms. He never meant to punish our children. He meant to shield me from the storm he knew would come after he was gone. And he was right. The storm came. And it came wearing the faces of the two people I had loved most. Albert's heart began failing long before the doctors said the words out loud. I saw at first the way he pressed a hand against his chest when he stood up too quickly, the way his breath shortened when he climbed the stairs, the way his shoulders drooped after conversations with our children that used to bring him joy. I stayed by his side through every appointment. Every night he woke gasping. Every morning he tried to smile so I would not worry. I slept in a chair next to his hospital bed for weeks, washing his face with a warm cloth, feeding him soup he barely touched, whispering to him when the monitors beeped too loudly. Austin and Amelia came only when it was convenient, only when they could take photographs to show others how devoted they were. But outside those hospital walls, they told a different story. I overheard Austin once, near the elevator, telling a coworker, "Dad would still be alive if Mom didn't stress him out for decades." I heard Amelia tell her friends, "It was only a matter of time. Living with Mom kills joy." They rewrote history so easily, as if their father's gentleness had not been chipped away by their own coldness over the years. One night, when the machines hummed steadily and the fluorescent lights softened, Albert asked me to lean closer. His voice was thin, almost fading into the sterile air. "Christine," he whispered, "if one day you find yourself pushed out of this home, if our children turn on you, call my lawyer, he knows what to do." I didn't understand. I thought he was speaking out of fear and exhaustion. But the look in his eyes was clear, sharper than it had been in months. "Promise me," he said. I nodded. I didn't grasp the weight of the promise then. I would later. After his funeral, I expected grief to bring my children closer, even if only for a moment. But grief only loosened whatever thin threads still held us together. The very next morning, while I was still wearing the black dress I had slept in, Austin walked into the kitchen and said, "We're selling the house." No hesitation, no preface, just a command. Amelia stood behind him, arms crossed, eyes cold. "It's the logical thing," she said. "Met alone in a 5-bedroom house? It's wasteful." She said wasteful like the word was dirty. I stared at them, unable to form words. This house was the place Albert and I had built together, piece by piece. It was where we raised our children, where he had painted the nursery walls himself, where he had carried me across the threshold on our wedding night with a grin so wide it made my cheeks hurt from smiling. But Austin and Amelia did not see memories. They saw a number they could divide. Austin had been drowning in debt for years, sinking every borrowed dollar into startups he barely understood. Every time he failed, he blamed bad luck, bad timing, bad partners, never himself. Amelia was newly divorced, humiliated after her husband left her for a colleague, and she needed money for lawyers, a new condo, and the kind of lifestyle she believed she deserved. Between the two of them, my home became nothing more than a lifeboat they intended to strip for wood. I told them quietly, "Your father wanted me to stay here. This is our home." Austin waved his hand dismissively. "Dad isn't here anymore," Amelia added. "You'll survive. You always do. But we need this now." That sentence stuck in my chest like a splinter. We need this now. My needs were irrelevant. My grief, unseen. My history, discarded. What I did not know was that Albert had prepared for this long before his heart gave out. Months before he died, he met privately with his lawyer, arranging a sealed will I never saw. In it, he left the house entirely to me for life, with conditions. Our children would inherit only if they respected my place in the home and provided care when I needed it. He recorded this on video, speaking calmly into the camera so there would be no doubt of his intent. He also sent the lawyer a USB drive containing footage from the quiet cameras he had hidden throughout the house, cameras that captured the years of contempt Austin and Amelia showed me when he wasn't around. He was not vengeful. He was protective. He knew our children better than I wanted to admit. But Austin and Amelia were not done. When I refused to sign the first set of sale papers they shoved in front of me, they changed tactics. They visited less. But when they did come by, it was only to criticize. "Mom, you forgot to turn off the stove," Austin said once, even though he was the one who had turned it on. "You're slipping." Amelia whispered to the neighbors that I was losing touch, that I should not be living alone, that they were looking into options. They told neighbors to call them instead of helping me if anything happened. "We're preparing to move her to a care facility," they explained. "It's what's best." They were grooming the world to believe I was incapable. The cruelest cut came when I found a stack of pamphlets for nursing homes tucked into my mailbox, placed there by Amelia. On one of them she had written, "You'll be happier here. Accept it." That night I sat on the edge of my bed, Albert's old sweater in my lap, and finally understood the look he gave me in the hospital. He had known this would happen. He had tried to warn me. He had left me tools I didn't yet know how to use. I held the sweater tight and whispered into the darkness, "I miss you. I wish you were here." And in the silence that followed, I realized something else. The fight for my home had only just begun. The morning of the estate sale felt like watching strangers dismantle my entire life piece by piece. I stood in the doorway of the living room while people I had never seen before wandered through the house Albert and I built, touching our furniture, opening our drawers, judging the things we once held dear. It felt less like a sale and more like a dissection of my memories. Austin stood at the center of it all, as if he were the master of a grand performance. Clipboard in hand, shirt ironed crisp, smile practiced, he spoke to the agents and buyers as though he had owned this house long before he was even born. "Let us keep the flow moving," he said to the realtor, snapping his fingers. "Bigger items go first. The antiques have priority. Everything must go today. Everything. Even the life I had poured into these walls." Amelia floated around the room in expensive heels, her hair perfectly styled, her lipstick flawless, acting like the hostess of a high-end open house instead of a daughter selling off her father's belongings. Whenever someone asked a question, she answered with a professional tone that held not a trace of the girl I raised. She had even pinned a badge to her blouse that said Miller Family Estate Representative, as though she were protecting a legacy rather than gutting it. A couple in their 60s stopped near the credenza and asked, "Where is the actual homeowner? Will she be here for questions?" Austin laughed, an easy, polished laugh he used when he wanted to charm people. "Oh, legally it is the family's property. My mother is just temporarily staying here. We are helping her transition." Transition. A gentle word for eviction. I felt myself shrink even further into the corner of the living room. But shrinking only made me more visible to Amelia. She turned and spotted me like a flaw in her staging. "Mom," she said sharply, "do not stand there. You make the house look cluttered." I opened my mouth, but she waved her hand as if brushing away a nuisance. "Go to the back. Please, you are distracting buyers." The more they stared, the harsher my children became. This was how insecurity behaved. It ate its own pride, and then its own blood. Austin clapped his hands loudly, calling the attention of everyone in the room. Okay, folks, special announcement. Whatever my mother wants to keep, she can take it now, as long as she can carry it. After today, she does not live here anymore. So pick fast, Mom, and do not take anything valuable. Someone gasped softly. Another muttered, "That is cruel." But Amelia doubled down, stepping toward me with a smile so thin it might have been carved with a blade. "Actually," she said, "take what you can carry and go die somewhere else. We are done with this drama." The words hit me square in the chest. For a moment, I felt my knees weaken. I was 73 years old, standing in the home I built with the only man I ever loved, listening to the two lives I brought into this world tell me to disappear. And something inside me, something quiet, something that had been beaten down for years, finally stopped shrinking. I straightened my back. I did not raise my voice. I did not argue. I simply turned and walked toward my bedroom with steady steps. My hands no longer trembled. My breath no longer broke, because I knew exactly what they had forgotten. Albert had left me something they did not know existed. I opened my dresser drawer, reached beneath the old linens, and pulled out the worn paper bag he had given me months before he died. He had pressed it into my hands the night before his heart gave out, whispering, "Open this when they try to take what is yours." My fingers closed around its weight, and for the first time since the sale began, the fear inside me grew quiet. They thought the house was their victory. They had no idea it was their undoing. When I stepped back into the living room, the noise of the estate sale thinned into a strange, uneasy hush. Buyers paused mid-conversation. The realtor lowered her clipboard. Even Austin and Amelia seemed stunned, as if I had returned from a place they believed I had no strength left to reach. I carried the worn paper bag Albert had given me, holding it against my chest the way one might hold something fragile and powerful at the same time. I walked straight to the center table, our old oak coffee table, the one Albert built with his own hands, and set the bag down gently. For the first time in years, I felt the room watching me instead of watching my children. I cleared my throat. "Before you continue selling my home," I said, "there is something I need to clarify." Amelia rolled her eyes so dramatically the movement nearly twisted her entire head. Austin crossed his arms, already annoyed. "Mom," he said, "this is not the time." But it was. It was the only time. My fingers moved slowly as I opened the bag. The first document I pulled out was a thin, crisp piece of paper that still carried the scent of the file it had lived in for decades. The deed. I unfolded it and placed it flat on the table. My name, printed in bold, black letters near the top, seemed to glow under the living room lights. Christine Miller, sole owner. The realtor leaned closer, squinting. Her eyebrows shot upward. "Wait, Mrs. Miller is the homeowner?" she asked, turning to Austin with genuine confusion. "All your paperwork lists you two as the decision-makers." Austin's face twitched, but he tried to recover. "That must be an old file," he said quickly. "My father intended to sign it over to us before he passed. This is a mistake. She does not understand legal documents." They had always assumed the house was in both of their parents' names, just like every other home in the neighborhood, and never once imagined it could legally belong to me alone. He reached for the deed, but I placed my hand over it before he could touch it. "It is not a mistake," I said quietly. A ripple moved across the room, buyers whispering, exchanging looks, pulling out their phones. But I was not finished. I reached back into the bag and pulled out a thick stack of papers, edges slightly yellowed from years in a filing drawer. I set them beside the deed. "These," I continued, "are the property tax receipts for the last 20 years. Every year, I paid them. Every year, the county recorded my name. Not a single one is signed by either of you." I spread them across the table like a dealer revealing a winning hand. The inked signatures, my signatures, stared back at everyone in the room. One of the buyers, a woman in a navy blazer, stepped forward and looked from the receipts to the deed. Her mouth tightened. "If she's the legal owner," she said to the realtor, "then this sale has no validity. We could be participating in fraud." Another buyer spoke up, pulling out his phone. "I need to call my attorney. Right now." The realtor took a step back, fumbling with her papers. "We May need to pause the sale until this is sorted out. Austin's voice cracked as panic slipped through his polished facade. Mom, stop this. You are confused. These documents are old. You are not thinking clearly. He reached for my arm as if he meant to guide me away, but his touch was not gentle. It was possessive. I pulled my arm back. I am thinking more clearly than you have in your entire life. Amelia tried a different tactic. Tears. She forced them quickly, rubbing her eyes until they reddened. Mom, please, she whimpered. This is overwhelming for you. All the paperwork, it just complicates things. Let us handle it. We know what Dad wanted. No, I said firmly. You know what you wanted. The room grew quiet again. The kind of quiet that exposes every truth people try to bury. This is my home, I said, looking from Austin to Amelia. It always has been. Your father made sure of that. And you cannot sell what does not belong to you. Austin's face hardened, the charm draining out of him like water through a sieve. Give me the deed, Mom, he said, his voice low, dangerous. You do not know what you're doing. I lifted my chin. I know exactly what I am doing. I am stopping both of you from stealing the only thing your father wanted me to keep. The buyers had stopped browsing entirely. Some stood with crossed arms. Some whispered in clusters. A few glared openly at my children, disgust palpable on their faces. The realtor murmured to her assistant, "We might need to alert the authorities. This could be a legal issue." The humiliation my children had intended for me now curled back toward them like a thrown blade finding its owner. But I did not feel triumph yet, only steadiness. Resolve. The realtor cleared her throat nervously. We are suspending the estate sale until the legal owner confirms consent, which, from the looks of it, would be Mrs. Miller. Austin opened his mouth to protest when the doorbell rang. 3 slow, deliberate chimes. Every head turned. I felt a chill run through me, not fear, but recognition. As if the past had finally arrived on schedule. I walked to the door and opened it. Standing there, holding a briefcase and wearing the same steady expression he had the day Albert introduced us, was my husband's attorney. Mrs. Miller, he said with a respectful nod, I believe today is the day your husband prepared you for. And behind him, a small envelope, a USB drive, and a sealed copy of Albert's final will. My children had no idea that their nightmare had only just begun. The room tightened the moment Albert's attorney stepped inside. His presence cut through the chaos of the halted sale, through Austin's mutters and Amelia's panicked breathing, through the uneasy shuffling of buyers who no longer wished to be part of anything happening in my home. The attorney closed the door gently behind him, then turned to me with a look I had not seen since Albert was alive, steady, reassuring, purposeful. Mrs. Miller, he said softly, Albert asked me to come if this day ever arrived. A chill moved through me, not fear but recognition. My husband had seen this future long before I did. He carried a briefcase to the coffee table and set it beside the deed and tax receipts. Then he opened it, removed a laptop, and looked directly at Austin and Amelia. I believe you two know me, he said calmly. I handled your father's estate, his insurance, and his personal affairs for more than 20 years. Austin swallowed hard. Amelia wrapped her arms around herself. Albert had told me the cameras were for safety, but deep down I think he knew our children were becoming something he no longer recognized. He clicked open a folder labeled simply, "For Christine." Then he opened a video file. The room fell silent as the first frame appeared, our dining room, recorded from the corner near the ceiling, just as Albert had said, time stamped from 2 years before his death. Austin was at the table, feet kicked up, drinking beer. Amelia sat across from him, scrolling through her phone. Austin's voice filled the room. As soon as Dad dies, we sell this dump and stick Mom in the cheapest nursing home we can find. Laughter his. Then Amelia's voice, sharp and bitter. She's dead weight. Always has been. This house deserves better owners. I mean, look at her. She should be grateful we even keep her around. Laughter again. Cruel, familiar. The buyers stopped moving altogether. Even the realtor froze. The attorney clicked again. A second clip loaded, this time from the living room. Austin standing over me while I folded laundry. You are useless, Mom, he snapped. Pathetic. A parasite. Amelia chimed in from the couch. Seriously, why do you even bother pretending to be part of the family? Someone in the crowd whispered. My God. Another murmured, and they said she was the problem? The attorney closed the videos. For a long moment, the only sound in the room was Amelia's uneven, shallow breathing. Then he pulled out a thick, sealed envelope. This, he said, is your father's last will and testament, the final version, signed by 2 witnesses, stored with our firm. Austin stepped forward quickly. Dad would never cut us out of anything. She made him do this. She manipulated him. The attorney raised a single eyebrow. Your father recorded a message for this, too. He pulled out another document, Albert's signature, clear, steady, dated 6 months before his death. He read aloud. I, Albert Miller, leave our family home to my wife, Christine, for the duration of her life. She may live in it, sell it, or pass it on as she chooses. My children, Austin and Amelia, are to inherit my remaining assets only under the condition that they treat their mother with respect, dignity, and proper care. If they attempt to force her into a nursing facility against her wishes, pressure her to sell the home, or engage in any form of manipulation or cruelty toward her, they forfeit all rights to my estate. The room buzzed with shock, quiet, horrified shock. The attorney set the will on the table. Your father signed 3 copies. Here is the original. Here are the notarized duplicates. These were filed with the county courthouse months before his passing. Austin looked ready to leap across the table. No, no. He would not do that. But Amelia's legs finally gave out, and she collapsed into the nearest chair, whispering, So, we have nothing? We did all this? For nothing? The buyers began drifting away, uncomfortable now, many shaking their heads. One murmured, I feel sick being here. Another whispered, Poor woman, those are her kids? The realtor gathered her materials silently, as if afraid to breathe too loudly. My children had always been the loudest ones in the room, but now, under the weight of truth, they were the ones shrinking. Austin pointed at me with a trembling hand. You planned this. You and the old man. The attorney cut him off. Your father planned this, because he knew you better than you knew yourselves. Tears formed in my eyes, not from sadness, but from the ache of being finally, undeniably believed. Then the attorney turned to me. His voice lowered, so only we and my children could hear. Mrs. Miller, he said, before Albert passed. He left one more item for you. He said it should be revealed only if you felt it necessary. He removed a second envelope from his briefcase. Smaller. Marked with my name in Albert's handwriting. Inside was a single sheet and a USB drive. He held it out carefully. Are you certain, he asked, that you want me to proceed with this last disclosure? Austin and Amelia stiffened. They sensed danger without knowing its shape. I looked at my children, the 2 people I brought into this world, the 2 people who had treated me as though I were disposable, and I felt a kind of clarity I had not felt in years. My lips trembled, but my voice stayed steady. Albert trusted me with the truth, I said. Open it. Their faces drained of color, because none of them were prepared for what was coming next. The attorney held the small sealed envelope between his fingers as though it weighed more than paper and ink could possibly weigh. Austin and Amelia stared at it like it was something radioactive, and in a way, it was. It contained the last truth Albert ever left behind, the truth he believed should surface only if our children turned against me completely. He looked at me for final confirmation. I nodded. He broke the seal. Inside was a simple folded sheet and the USB drive. He set the drive aside and opened the document. His expression softened, carrying a sorrow I had seen only at Albert's funeral. Mrs. Miller, he said quietly, Albert wrote that this truth would shake the family, but he wanted it revealed only if his children showed cruelty toward you. He hoped this moment would never come, but he prepared for it, just in case. Austin muttered under his breath, This is ridiculous. Amelia hugged herself tighter. The attorney turned the paper toward the light and began reading. This is a certified DNA report conducted at Albert's request, he said. It establishes biological relationships within the family. My heartbeat thudded painfully, because even though I had known the result for decades, the weight of hearing it aloud still hit me like a distant echo of old wounds. The report concludes, the attorney continued, that neither Austin nor Amelia is biologically related to Albert. A single breath fell across the room, sharp, stunned, disbelieving. Austin froze, eyes wide, mouth half open like his voice had abandoned him. Then he erupted. "That is a lie! You forged this! He was my father! He raised me!" Amelia staggered backward and gripped the edge of a chair, her face drained of color. "No," she whispered, eyes filling. "No. If he is not our father, then what are we? What are we supposed to be?" The attorney did not flinch. He handed them copies of the DNA report, the same ones Albert had signed off on years ago. They stared at the pages, but the words refused to rearrange themselves into something less painful. Austin crumpled his copy with trembling hands. "This is fraud. This is fake. My father would have told me." The attorney shook his head. "He chose not to tell you because he loved you. And he knew that knowing the truth too soon might harm you. He asked Christine to keep the past private so you could grow up without the shadow of something you had no control over." I felt Amelia's gaze cut through me like a knife, not hateful, but shattered. "Is this true?" she whispered. "All this time? You knew?" I swallowed hard. Yes, I knew. My voice wavered, not from guilt, but from the memory of how that truth was born. "You are not the children of the man who hurt me. You are the children Albert chose deliberately, lovingly, without hesitation." Their expressions splintered again, as if the words had only deepened the wound. The attorney cleared his throat. "Albert learned about the truth early in the marriage. He had suspicions and requested a private DNA test. But when the results came back, he did something extraordinary." He paused before continuing. "He did nothing. He did not leave. He did not blame Christine. He did not tell anyone. Instead, he raised Austin and Amelia as his own with complete devotion." Austin shook his head violently. "No, no, no. He would have wanted his real children, not his real children," the attorney interrupted gently, "were the ones he loved, and he loved you both, deeply. He provided for you. He protected you. He championed your accomplishments. The only condition he asked was that you show basic respect to the woman who survived the worst kind of suffering and still chose to bring you into this world." Amelia's knees gave out, and she collapsed onto the couch, sobbing quietly. Austin's face, red with anger moments before, now twisted into confusion and something closer to desperation. "So what does that make us?" he demanded, voice cracking. "If we are not his children, what are we now?" The attorney looked at him with a mixture of pity and disappointment. "It makes you two the children of a woman who endured cruelty before she met Albert and still chose to love you. It makes you the children of a man who was noble enough to raise you without needing blood ties. And it makes you individuals responsible for the pain you inflicted on the very person who sacrificed the most for you." The weight of the words settled over them like ash. "And now," the attorney continued, "because you attempted to coerce your mother into a nursing home, lied about her mental state, and tried to sell her property behind her back, you forfeit any inheritance Albert left for you." Austin stumbled backward, hitting the edge of the dining table. "So that is it?" he shouted. "We lose everything? The house, the money, the accounts, everything?" I looked at him for a long, painful moment. "Albert gave you a family," I said. "But you valued the furniture more than the father who raised you." Amelia lifted her tear-streaked face. "We should have known," she whispered. "He was always better than us." Her voice broke completely. They sank to the floor, two grown adults, trembling, ruined not by me, not by Albert, but by the weight of their own cruelty reflected back at them. I watched them with a heart that felt torn open and stitched shut at the same time. Pain, yes, because no mother dreams of seeing her children brought this low. But also something else, something quiet and long overdue: justice. Albert had given them every chance to be good. They had chosen the opposite. And now the truth, blood deep, irrevocable, had finally come home. By the time the attorney closed his briefcase, the estate sale had fully collapsed. The realtor gathered her signs in silence, her eyes darting between Austin and Amelia with unmistakable discomfort. Buyers filed out quickly, whispering among themselves, some shaking their heads, some staring at my children as though they were witnessing a scandal unravel in real time. The consequences began almost immediately. An hour after the attorney left, a man in a gray suit appeared at the gate, a representative from the bank. Austin stiffened when he saw him. I watched from the porch as the man approached with a folder in hand. "Mr. Miller?" he asked. Austin swallowed. "Yes. I need to discuss a loan application you filed last month. You used this property," he gestured toward the house, "as collateral." Austin's face drained. "That was pending. It is my house." The banker opened the folder. "According to county records and the updated deed we just pulled, it is not. And applying for a secured loan using property you do not own can qualify as attempted fraud." I saw Austin stagger back as if someone had punched him in the stomach. Amelia let out a small gasp. The banker continued, voice calm but firm. "I will be forwarding this case to our legal department. You will receive official notice soon." He turned and left without another word. Amelia's phone buzzed next. She answered it with shaky hands. It was her divorce attorney. I could hear the muffled tone through the receiver firm, disapproving. Yes, I know the video is circulating," she whispered. "No, I did not. No, that was not abuse. She just..." Her face tightened. "What do you mean, custody review?" The more her attorney spoke, the more she crumbled. When she finally hung up, she looked at me as though the entire world had just tilted beneath her feet. "He said," she whispered, "that what I did today, the yelling, the threats, the comments about you dying, it will destroy my case. He said a judge could see it as elder abuse. He said I could lose custody." She covered her face with both hands, and her shoulders shook, not with regret, only with fear for herself. By the next morning, word had spread through the community. The neighbors who once politely waved at my children now avoided eye contact. Some even crossed the street to avoid them. At the grocery store, I overheard someone whisper, "Those two treated their mother like garbage. Their father must be rolling in his grave." At church, Pastor Williams placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "Albert always spoke of your strength. Now we see why." The little kindness from others felt strange after so many years of being dismissed and overlooked, but I accepted it quietly. People were not praising me, they were condemning my children. When Austin and Amelia returned to the house that afternoon, they found the locks changed. Their eyes widened as they realized the door would not budge. I stepped outside, steady on my cane, and stood between them and the home they had tried to steal from me. "Mom, please," Amelia whispered. Her voice trembled. "We have nowhere to go." Austin looked angry, but even he knew enough to keep his voice low. "We need a place to stay, just for now." I took a breath, slow, deliberate. "I am not throwing you out of my life," I said, "but I am drawing a line." They listened, desperate, wet from the drizzle beginning to fall. "You are not allowed to live here," I said firmly. "This house is mine, and it stays mine. If you want to visit, you call first. You come with respect. You speak with dignity, and you will not receive a single cent of inheritance from me. Not now. Not ever." Amelia started crying again. Austin looked away, jaw locked tight. Neither of them argued. They simply stood there, two adults suddenly stripped of every illusion they had built about themselves. The attorney returned later that evening with one final envelope. He handed it to me gently. "This is Albert's last letter," he said. "He wanted you to have it only after everything came to light." When he left, I sat in the quiet of my living room, the room that had once been filled with the voices of my family, and opened the envelope. Albert's handwriting filled the page, steady and warm. "My Christine, if you are reading this, it means the moment I feared has arrived. I knew there might come a day our children forgot who kept this home standing. You always believed you were the lesser half of our marriage, but you were wrong. You were the reason our family held together for as long as it did. I could not protect you in life the way I wanted to, so I protected you in death. This home is yours. Always. You built it with love when the world gave us nothing. You once said you were only the wife of a poor teacher, but to me, you were the roof over my life. Do not let anyone take that from you. Albert." I pressed Albert's letter to my chest, grateful he still stood beside me even from the grave. Outside the gate, Austin and Amelia shivered in the rain, stripped of every ounce of arrogance, holding nothing at all. I closed the door, made tea, and looked at our wedding photo. They told me to take what I could carry. I carried the truth, and the truth carried everything else away. And that, my dear listeners, is the truth of what happened in that old Tennessee house. I once believed age made a person invisible, but life has a way of reminding us that even the quietest women carry storms in their pockets. I did not raise my voice. I did not fight with my fists. I simply held on to the truth, and the truth did the rest. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of your own strength, or if it made you whisper, "Finally, justice," then I am grateful you stayed with me until the end. These stories of grandmothers, of women who endured, of people who rebuilt themselves when the world tried to tear them down, deserve a place to be heard. So, if you want more true stories like this, stories of resilience, betrayal, redemption, and a love that refuses to die, go ahead and subscribe to Grandma True Stories. Your support keeps these stories alive and brings them to the next soul who needs to hear that they are not alone. Thank you for listening. This is Christine, and remember, the world may forget, but grandmothers never do.